Three women at Gold Spa on Piedmont Road before killing a fourth woman at aromatherapy spa. Family members of the victims used today to push for tougher gun laws in our state.
Why did someone, fueled by a toxic blend of anger and prejudice, choose to target places of solace? And what if every answer you thought you knew only led to more questions? Stay with me, because the story behind the Atlanta spa shootings is as mysterious as it is devastating. Let's begin by setting the scene. Atlanta, a city renowned for its vibrant culture and resilience, was rocked on the evening of March 16, 2021. The city, known for its innovation and diversity, suddenly became the stage for a tragedy that would force the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about race and gun violence. But why, you might ask, would a place that symbolizes progress and hope be scarred by such an act? The answer lies in a web of hate, history, and a chilling desire to send a message. On that fateful night, several spas, oases of calm in an otherwise hectic urban life, became targets. The shootings unfolded with a speed and brutality that left little room for escape. 8 people lost their lives that night, and their deaths echoed far beyond the walls of those serene establishments. But what exactly happened? How did a night meant for relaxation turn into a scene of carnage? Authorities later revealed that the shootings were not random acts of violence, but rather a racially charged attack. The suspect, whose motivations were as murky as the night itself, appeared to have fixated on certain spas, many of which were owned or frequented by members of the Asian community. This detail, however, is just the tip of the iceberg. But why did this particular target become the focus of such hatred? And what dark undercurrents in our society allowed this tragedy to occur? The investigation began almost immediately. Police combed through surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic evidence, trying to piece together the sequence of events. Early reports painted a picture of a man whose actions were deliberate, his trigger finger poised to strike at places of sanctuary. Yet, even as investigators dug deeper, they found themselves facing more questions than answers. Why did the assailant choose spas? What connection, if any, did these locations have with his twisted ideology? And most importantly, what does it say about the state of racial tensions in our society today? Consider the atmosphere in Atlanta leading up to that night. The city had already been on edge. Its citizens were well aware of the racial divide that has long simmered beneath the surface. Therefore, when news broke of the shootings, it struck a chord not only as a heinous act of violence, but as a symbolic attack on a community burdened by discrimination. The timing was no accident. The attack coincided with a period of heightened racial tension across the nation. Let's take a moment to reflect on the victims. These were not just numbers in a report. They were individuals with dreams, families, and histories. Each life lost was a story abruptly ended, leaving behind questions that haunt their loved ones to this day. Imagine the shock and the unbearable grief of families who believed their community was a safe haven, only to have that illusion shattered by violence. And you might wonder, why did this hate-fueled attack have to target such innocent souls? The answer is buried in a toxic mix of personal bias, societal neglect, and a failure of systems meant to protect us. In the immediate aftermath, as the city mourned and the nation demanded answers, media outlets scrambled to piece together the narrative. Headlines screamed of a racially charged mass shooting, while experts debated the implications of the attack. But amid the chaos, there was also a subtle undercurrent of mystery. There were conflicting reports about the shooter's background, his motive, and even his connections to extremist ideologies. Some eyewitnesses recalled seeing a lone figure shrouded in darkness disappearing into the night after the shootings. Others mentioned symbols or graffiti left behind that hinted at a deeper, more insidious message. Others mentioned symbols or graffiti left behind that hinted at a deeper, more insidious message. Now, let's dig deeper into the investigation. Authorities soon discovered that the suspect's actions were not those of a random criminal, but of someone driven by ideology. Interviews with acquaintances revealed that he had long harbored racist sentiments, often expressing disdain for those he deemed other. But here's the crucial question. What pushed him from merely harboring hatred to committing such an atrocity? Was it a singular moment of rage, or had years of prejudice and isolation built up to this explosive point? The answer seems to lie in a combination of personal grievances and societal failures. It is a stark reminder that when hate is allowed to fester, it can eventually erupt in catastrophic ways. But as the investigation progressed, another element came to light, a series of baffling clues that hinted at a possible cover-up or misdirection. Some law enforcement officials noted that certain pieces of evidence seemed to vanish inexplicably. There were whispers that some information might have been deliberately withheld. Why would anyone try to obscure the truth behind such a public tragedy? Could there be connections to larger, more powerful forces within the city or even the nation? Therefore, what initially appeared to be a straightforward hate crime began to reveal an intricate tapestry of secrets, missteps, and potential systemic corruption. One particularly perplexing detail was the choice of target: spas, places of peace and healing. One theory suggests that the shooter was sending a message, a twisted declaration that even the sanctuaries of self-care were not immune to his hatred. But that begs the question, why spas? Some experts speculated that these locations represented more than just businesses. They symbolized a thriving community that had overcome centuries of discrimination. Attacking them was not merely about physical destruction, it was a symbolic blow to the progress made by a resilient community. And that, perhaps, is the most chilling part of the story. The realization that hate can target not only people, but the very spaces that offer hope and healing. Throughout the days following the shooting, debates erupted on national television, in newspapers, and on social media. Discussions centered on issues of gun control, public safety, and the persistent racial divides that continue to plague our society. But these conversations often veered away from the root causes of the tragedy. Why did the shooter feel so emboldened to act on his deep-seated prejudices? Was it a failure of our institutions, a breakdown of community trust? Or was it something even more profound? A societal inability to address the underlying tensions that have festered for generations. The tragedy forced us to confront our own perceptions of safety. Imagine the shock of walking into a spa, a place where you expect serenity and rejuvenation, and instead encountering an environment marred by violence and terror. How do we rebuild trust in a society where the very places we seek refuge can become battlegrounds? Let's not forget the debates that the incident sparked regarding gun violence. In a country where firearms are both a right and a source of persistent sorrow, the Atlanta spa shootings reignited discussions about the accessibility of weapons and the ease with which hate can be weaponized. Critics argued that the tragedy was yet another consequence of lax gun control laws, while others contended that the issue was far more complex, a convergence of mental health, extremist ideology, and societal neglect. But why is it so hard to find common ground on this issue? The answer lies in the intricate balance between individual rights and collective safety, a debate riddled with contradictions and unresolved tensions. Furthermore, the shootings prompted a national conversation on race. For many, the fact that the attacks specifically targeted spas frequented by members of the Asian community was a glaring reminder of the long-standing prejudices in our society. It forced the nation to acknowledge that even in our modern era, racism remains a potent and destructive force. But what fuels this racism? Is it fear of the unknown, a misunderstanding of cultural differences, or a deeper systemic problem rooted in centuries of inequality? These are questions that demand honest answers, and the Atlanta spa shootings provided a painful yet necessary catalyst for that conversation. As investigators continued to untangle the web of evidence, they uncovered a series of small yet significant details that hinted at a larger narrative. Some witnesses recalled seeing a figure in dark clothing fleeing the scene, while others noted that certain areas around the spas were eerily quiet in the aftermath. These fragmented pieces of evidence only deepened the mystery. Each new clue forced everyone to ask, what if there's more to this story than meets the eye? Could there be connections to other unsolved cases, or even larger networks of hate? The more the investigation progressed, the more it became apparent that the incident was not merely an isolated act of violence. It was a symptom of a deeper malaise affecting our society. But let's shift our focus for a moment to the impact on the community. In the days following the shootings, Atlanta was engulfed in a wave of grief, anger, and reflection. Vigils were held in memory of the victims, and community leaders came together to support one another. The pain was palpable, but so was the determination to stand united in the face of hate. Yet, even as the city rallied together, many were left wondering, why did it take a tragedy of this magnitude for us to confront long-simmering issues? Why did it require the loss of so many lives before we began to truly address the toxic ideologies that continue to fester in our midst? These questions force us to look inward and confront the uncomfortable realities of our society. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement agencies across the nation began to share information and collaborate in unprecedented ways. The shooter's background was scrutinized, his digital footprint analyzed, and his connections to extremist groups explored. With every new piece of data, the narrative grew more complex. There were moments when it seemed the investigation was on the brink of revealing a clear motive and profile of the perpetrator. But then, just as quickly, another twist would emerge. A missing detail, an unexplained discrepancy that forced everyone back into uncertainty. Why does truth remain so elusive? Perhaps it is because the world is far more complex than our simplified narratives can capture, or because the forces of hate thrive in the shadows of ambiguity. But amid the chaos of competing theories and incomplete evidence, one thing remained undeniable. The Atlanta spa shootings had forever altered the fabric of the city. Businesses shuttered temporarily as fear gripped neighborhoods. Public debates raged over gun control, race relations, and the responsibilities of community leaders. And in every conversation, whether in boardrooms or at dinner tables, the same questions were asked. What led to this tragedy? How can we prevent it from happening again? And what does it mean for the future of our society? It is in these moments of collective introspection that the true power of the incident is revealed. The shootings forced us to examine not only the immediate acts of violence, but also the broader societal conditions that allowed such an act to occur. They demanded that we confront the reality that hate is not a relic of the past. It is a living, breathing force that continues to shape our world. Therefore, the Atlanta spa shootings are not just a story of one terrible night. They are a mirror reflecting the ongoing struggle against racism, gun violence, and the erosion of public safety. As we piece together the fragments of this narrative, we find ourselves faced with uncomfortable truths. The shooter's actions were not isolated. They were the culmination of a lifetime of prejudice and isolation. His motivations, while rooted in personal turmoil, were also a reflection of a society that has long failed to address its own divisions. And while the investigation continues and many questions remain unanswered, one thing is clear: our systems of justice and protection are not infallible. Now, I want you to imagine what it must be like for those who lost loved ones that night. Picture a family gathered around a dinner table, the echoes of laughter now replaced by the silence of grief. Imagine the raw, unfiltered pain of waking up to a world where safety is no longer guaranteed. These are the human stories behind the headlines, the lives that were forever changed by an act of senseless violence. And it is these stories that compel us to keep asking, why must we endure such loss? What can be done to heal a community so deeply wounded? In the wake of the shootings, community leaders and activists have been working tirelessly to address the underlying issues. They have organized town halls, initiated dialogues on race and gun control, and sought to bridge the divides that have long separated us. But progress, as we all know, is often slow and fraught with setbacks. And so the debates continue, loud, impassioned, and often heartbreaking. Yet in the midst of all this, there is a glimmer of hope. The tragedy has ignited a renewed commitment to fight for a safer, more just society. It has spurred conversations that, if they lead to meaningful change, could prevent future tragedies. Let's talk about public safety for a moment. The Atlanta spa shootings forced many to reevaluate what it means to be safe in our communities. Gun control laws, mental health services, community outreach programs, each is a piece of a larger puzzle. But the tragedy revealed that no single solution is sufficient. We must adopt a holistic approach that addresses the root causes of violence. Until we confront these deep-seated issues, no amount of surface-level reform will truly safeguard our communities. And here, the issue of race cannot be ignored. The shooter's targeting of spas owned or frequented by Asian community members underscores a painful reality. Racism, both overt and subtle, continues to poison our society. The attack was not only an act of violence, but a deliberate message, a reminder that prejudice still holds powerful sway. Therefore, the conversation around the Atlanta spa shootings extends far beyond the immediate tragedy. It is a call to action, a demand for introspection, and a plea for change. As the days turned into weeks, the nation watched as investigators raced against time to bring the perpetrator to justice. In courtrooms and newsrooms alike, experts debated the implications of the case, and with every passing day, the question, why, loomed larger. Why did this happen, and what will it take for justice to prevail? Now, as we approach the present, the scars of that night remain. The Atlanta spa shootings have become a symbol, a tragic reminder of how quickly our world can be upended by violence. They continue to fuel debates on race, gun control, and the role of law enforcement in protecting vulnerable communities. And while some progress has been made, the echoes of that night still reverberate through the corridors of power and the hearts of everyday citizens. Imagine yourself in the shoes of a community member in Atlanta, witnessing the aftermath of such horror. The city, once a beacon of hope and opportunity, now grapples with the fallout of a single devastating act. You find yourself questioning everything. Your sense of security, your trust in institutions, and even your understanding of justice. The story of the Atlanta spa shootings is far from over. The investigation continues and the wounds slowly begin to heal. Yet the questions persist. What will be done to prevent such tragedies in the future? How can communities overcome the divisive forces of hate? And what lessons can we as a society learn from this dark chapter in our history? If you've been captivated by this journey into the dark heart of the Atlanta spa shootings, then you're not alone. Every twist and every unanswered question is a testament to the complexities of our society. A society where the search for justice is never-ending, and every truth hides a secret.